10,000 warriors from across the Arabian Peninsula are marching on Medina. This massive coalition is driven by a thirst for revenge and has a single, terrifying goal: wipe out the Muslims completely. The defenders face impossible odds. They are vastly outnumbered, and to make matters worse, Arabia is in the grip of a severe drought. Food is so scarce that many of the Muslims are literally tying stones to their stomachs to dull the sharp pain of starvation. Facing an open-field massacre, the Prophet holds a desperate counsel. A companion of Persian origin named Salman al-Farisi steps forward with a tactic entirely alien to the Arabian Peninsula, abandoning open combat altogether and digging a massive defensive trench around the city. Looking at this map of Medina, you can see why this strategy makes sense. The city enjoys natural protection on three sides. Wide, jagged fields of volcanic rock block the east and west. A dense network of date palm groves, along with a large mountain to the south, make a cavalry charge completely impossible. That leaves only one vulnerable gap in the north. To plug that northern gap, the defenders carve out a trench nearly 6 kilometers long. It measures 9 meters across, roughly the length of 5 men laid end to end, and drops over 4 meters deep. It is a barrier far too wide for even the most skilled Arabian horsemen to jump. When the invading army finally arrives, they freeze. Their entire military doctrine relies on swift, overwhelming cavalry charges. Confronted by this massive, unfamiliar chasm, their momentum dies, and their confidence shatters into total confusion. Completing this massive excavation in under 10 days requires grueling labor. Throughout the blistering days and freezing nights, the Prophet himself wields a pickaxe. Despite intense hunger, he works side by side with his companions in the dirt. During the digging, the workers hit a solid, unyielding rock. The Prophet steps in and strikes it with a powerful blow, shattering the stone. With each strike, he promises his exhausted followers future victories over the towering, wealthy empires of Syria, Persia, and Yemen. When the coalition army reaches the trench, they realize they are entirely neutralized. With no way to cross, the battle degrades into a bitter, stagnant standoff, with both sides trading endless volleys of arrows across the divide. The invaders eventually find a single narrow section of the trench. A heavily armored, highly feared warrior named Amr ibn Ab Wood manages to jump his horse across. Ali, the son of Abu Talib, steps forward on foot, blocks a strike to the head, and defeats the champion in a tense, dust-filled duel. Salman's tactic successfully halts a 10,000-man slaughter, but the victory is hollow. The Muslims are now trapped in a deadly war of attrition, with winter setting in and their food supplies running dangerously low. Then, the nightmare scenario materializes. The Jewish tribe of Banu Qurayza, bound by a mutual defense treaty to protect Medina, breaks their promise and aligns with the massive coalition outside the city. Looking at the tactical map again, the defenders' position instantly collapses. While holding the line at the northern trench, they are suddenly flanked by hostile forces emerging from the Banu Qurayza fortresses directly to their south. To break the alliance, the Prophet turns to Nu'aym ibn Mas'ud. Nu'aym is a leader from the invading Ghatafan tribe who has secretly accepted Islam. The Prophet assigns him a covert mission: slip back into the enemy camps and plant the seeds of division. Nu'aym approaches the Banu Qurayza and warns them that the coalition might abandon the siege, leaving the tribe to face the Muslims alone. He advises them to demand high-ranking hostages from the coalition as insurance. Then, he visits the coalition leaders and warns them that the Banu Qurayza are secretly planning to hand those exact hostages over to the Muslims. As the enemy alliance fractures under this manufactured paranoia, nature delivers the final blow. A violent, freezing sandstorm tears through the desert, ripping apart the Quraysh tents and scattering their horses and camels in total darkness. Broken by mutual suspicion, freezing winds, and starvation, the massive coalition retreats. Physical engineering stalled the invasion, but targeted psychological warfare and the brutal force of the desert ultimately ended the siege without a massive loss of life. The external armies are gone, but Medina remains deeply vulnerable. The immediate military danger vanishes, replaced by an invisible threat growing inside the city walls: the hypocrites. At the center of this movement is Abdullah ibn Hubay. Outwardly, he praises the Prophet in the mosque, but privately, he plots to destroy Islam by weaponizing the deep-seated tribal rivalries of Medina. During a later military expedition, a minor argument over drawing water from a well erupts between an emigrant from Mecca and a helper from Medina. Ibn Ubay seizes the moment, stoking the anger of the local Medinans and nearly pushing the two Muslim factions into a full-blown civil war. To stop the infighting, the Prophet issues a highly unusual order. He forces the entire army to march through the scorching heat of the afternoon and all through the night. By dawn, the soldiers are so exhausted they collapse into sleep, their tribal anger completely erased by sheer physical fatigue. But Ibn Ubay finds another opening. On the journey home, the Prophet's wife, Aisha, accidentally drops her necklace and stays behind to find it. When a male companion later discovers her and escorts her back to the army, Ibn Ubay fabricates a vicious, completely baseless rumor of infidelity. This calculated slander spreads through the ranks like wildfire. The existential threat to the Muslims shifts from an open battlefield directly into the Prophet's own home, illustrating how easily a fractured community can tear itself apart. For an entire agonizing month, the false rumor paralyzes Medina. The social fabric of the city begins to tear, while Aisha, entirely innocent, becomes severely ill from the overwhelming stress and shock of the accusations. The Prophet faces a severe leadership crisis. Defending his wife without concrete evidence would make him look like a biased, corrupt leader to his new followers. Yet taking action against her based on idle gossip would be a deep injustice. The tension finally breaks when a divine revelation descends. The verses explicitly clear Aisha of all wrongdoing and directly condemn the faction that engineered and spread the massive lie. This crisis results in strict new laws. Slandering someone's honor without 4 witnesses becomes a severe crime in the community. To deter future sabotage, 3 members of the community who helped spread the rumor are publicly given 80 lashes. As for the architect of the slander, Abdullah ibn Ubay, the Prophet refuses to execute him, knowing that killing a political rival would make him look like a tyrant. Years later, when Ibn Ubay dies, the Prophet even offers his own shirt to be used as the man's burial shroud. The trench protected the city from the outside, but this newly forged legal framework protects it from the inside. By prioritizing justice over revenge, the community proves it can withstand both overwhelming foreign armies and poisonous internal betrayals. With their borders secure and their community unified, the Muslims finally turn their eyes back to their original home. A deeply symbolic journey toward Mecca is about to begin, but it will end with a treaty no one ever saw coming.